What's up, folks? Anthony Armstrong here, former NFL receiver and host of Believe in Commanders. And with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League. It's a league specifically created for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. Make your way over to prizepicks.com/believe and use the code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for a first deposit match up to $100. You must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details. Pick more or pick less. It's that easy. Prize Picks.
Welcome in to another edition of the JMU Sports News Podcast. I am Bennett Conlon, joined by Jack Fitzpatrick. We're talking about the Kings of the Sun Belt East tonight.
Yes, sir. The one, the only, the true Kings. Those beach chickens can shove it because we are the rightful winners.
Yeah, I mean, they can't play in the Sun Belt East title game, but 47-7 feels pretty resounding, right? Even without...
they can't play in the Sun Belt East championship game. They can't play in the Sun Belt championship.
Sorry. Yes, that's very true. There is no Sun Belt East championship game. That'd be sweet if they did like a championship for the division and then for the actual conference. But yeah, I mean, they won by 40. What else is there to say, right? It was a heck of a performance. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Much appreciated. But yeah, we're the Sun Belt East champs.
After trailing 7-3,
like
there was a point in that game. There was a very real point in that game that I want to say before we get into our ad reads that people pay us for to say. I thought we were going to lose.
Kind of a tough start. But, I mean, honestly, who cares when in Harrisonburg you got the sweet potato casserole at Three Notch'd, which I've tried and I can recommend. Every game day they were pouring those $5 exclusive Duke clouds. No more game days, Jack. So
yeah, that's exactly. I gotta fix that read. My fault on that one.
But it's a quality beer. They got a lot of good stuff there. I love that tap room in Harrisonburg, and I think they're even. It's just, it's one of the best spots in the whole valley, man. They have so many different seasonals and their classics I love. It's a good spot to go.
It's a little bit off the beaten path. It's underneath Urban Exchange, so you got to kind of walk 2 blocks away from the main drag, but I think it's 100% worth it, and it's a fantastic time.
Especially if you want to play PS4.
Yeah, or Xbox or Nintendo 64 and the old school like NES. Any gaming console you can imagine, it's set up there. They also have one small TV in the corner for sports that Bennett and I had our necks craned around some stuff to watch. I think it was UVA beat Baylor. They also have taproom specific merch. So if you go to the tap room in Richmond, you can get Richmond merch. If you go to the tap room in Harrisonburg, you get Harrisonburg merch. And I believe they even make it school colors for the school it's close to. So purple and gold stuff going on in Harrisonburg. I believe black and yellow. Is that VCU?
Yep.
Or is it gold?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. You know what else
They're basically
matter?
the same. They're basically the same.
Yeah, exactly. Basketball is back, folks. And BetOnline remains your number one source for all of your sports betting needs this season. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, game trends, and so much more at BetOnline. And as your continued source for all your sports wagering information, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and giveaways all season long. Boost your bankroll with some of BetOnline's awesome free contests and giveaways. It's always the easiest and it's always the fastest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events, whether that's NFL, NBA, NHL, MMA, tennis, boxing, even golf. Head on over to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus, 5% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use promo code BELIEVE, promo code BLEAV to receive your rewards. Bet online, where the game starts.
Yay. Anyway, they're the Kings of the East. We did our ad read.
There we go. Okay, where are we?
Productive. Let's talk Kings of the East.
Oh, I was giving you a hard time for all the energy you were bringing.
Yeah, my sarcastic yay. But this is an exciting time to be a JMU sports fan. It was a beatdown of Coastal Carolina. They didn't have Grayson McCall, but I don't think he's worth 40 points.
Yeah, that's very true.
They're a better football team. They kind of dominated them. I think it would have been more competitive if Coastal had a passing game, but it
You
was
mean
still
a quarterback that could pass, period?
first drive. He missed a couple like wide open throws, and I was like, oh, this could be a long day for them. And then they sort of rallied, and I was like, oh, maybe they have something there. They didn't have anything there, but more so than that, like defensively, they didn't have anything.
I was kind of shocked. I know their defense wasn't rated highly per EPA and a lot of advanced metrics, but they weren't ranked that badly. Like, they were terrible. And their rushing defense was abysmal. I mean, Percy, before he got injured, just absolutely destroyed them on the ground. And I mean, they had no answer for anything that was being done.
Yeah, I mean, Latrell Palmer had kind of been pushed down to like the third running back, and he was running all over him. I thought it was a nice kind of almost a bounce back for him a little bit, where he has 8 carries, 61 yards, and a touchdown. He was really productive. Kalen Black was really good. But when you have Percy, Latrell Palmer, Kalen Black, they all got at least 7 carries, and they all averaged at least 5 yards a carry. It was a pretty dominant rushing performance. And then, of course, Centeo throws for 280 and 4 touchdowns and no picks. So it was a pretty clean game offensively.
Yeah, 100%. It was really fun to watch. And it was really great to see Todd Centeo go out like that and kind of put his stamp on the season with, what was it, a 5 touchdown total game?
Yeah, he ran for 1 as well. So 5 total touchdowns for him.
I mean, just otherworldly. He was named Sunbelt Player of the Week. I don't really know what else to say about this game other than it was just like a complete and utter beatdown. And I think I more want to talk about, I think Signetti's post-game comments.
Oh, those were good.
That leads us into kind of off-season talk and even
Yeah.
talk of what this season meant for JMU and JMU fans as a whole.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it was just a great season. I said it was a complete offensive performance. The defense only gave up 183 yards and 7 points. They were phenomenal. I think there were like a couple special teams plays that we were like, ugh. But overall, a very complete performance. Camden Wise had a pretty good game, and then of course, right as everyone's giving him a ton of praise, he like duck hooks an extra point. But it was still a very solid game overall. He had a strong end of the season. Centeo was obviously a stud. The offensive line is all slated to come back, all those starters, which is extremely exciting. They're going to return a lot of really good players. So I think, I guess my long-term view is just a lot of excitement, but it's also, and we'll get into this, I'm sure maybe now, college football is like just as much about transfer additions and recruiting as it is about like roster retention now. So that's like maybe my biggest concern, I guess, going forward.
Yeah, I want to get into that, dabble into transfer, dabble into even the coaching carousel that's going to go on. But I first want to talk about Signetti's post-game press conference when he said, well, I wanted to hang 65 on him. And then a lot of people running with that, like, this guy has this is awesome. Good for him. He didn't hang 65 on him, folks. Like, he pulled his starters with like 7 minutes left. He didn't go for the 65, and I think he very well could have. I think it's just funny how he said that in the post game, and everyone's just like, yeah, good job. But like, he didn't. It was fine. He won by 40. I'm not complaining. I just think it was really funny how even Signetti was like, well, I wanted to score 65. Who was stopping you, man? You are the end all be all.
He's awesome because he like really feels the moment with his post game comment. So like if they lost, it's like, we just don't have the depth, which is like kind of true. But then when they win, he's like, this is a national statement heard around the world. The nation knows about us now. And it's like, whoa. Like, I think that's like partially true. And like they ended on a really strong note, and people are going to recognize them as like one of the best in the Sun Belt. And there was some people who were like, oh, they should be in a bowl. They're such a fun team. So there is that, but I don't think there's like a national thing where it's like, when this thing expands to 12 teams, you got to keep your, I think it's more of like, oh, what a fun first year than it is like, oh my God, like they're unstoppable.
I think it's never too early to start making comparisons to the college basketball and the hardwood, as we are in the midst of a fantastic non-conference schedule over there in college basketball. It's like Bellarmine or Bellarmine.
It might be Bellarmine. This is from a Titus and Tate listener that they had like a 30-minute conversation and they landed, I think, on Bellarmine. So I don't, it could be that.
It's like them, how they're winning stuff, and everyone's like, "Oh, they're fun. Like, keep an eye on them when they're eligible." But I do want to. That brings me to a point before we dive into transfer portal stuff and off-season carousels. Do you want this team to play a bowl game? Because this entire season, like we were told this is impossible. They're not going to play a bowl game. Even Cignetti in his post game, he was like, this was our bowl game. Like we hyped it up. This was our big game of the season. And like, it would be really cool for JMU to be bowl eligible, but do you really want to see them, like, say by happenstance, they get offered a bowl? Would you want them to go to it at this point?
I don't think they will. I think that's the other thing that a lot of people have kind of thrown out ideas where they're like, schedule Virginia Tech. It's like, what? Like, doesn't really work like that. You know, like you can't just like add all these games, especially with like the FBS transition rules. And I think that weren't they supposed to like play 11? Wasn't that kind of like part of the thing, was that they're going to play 11 games and I don't know. It just feels like if you add a lot of things and change a bunch of pieces, that maybe you're sort of pushing buttons with the NCAA that still needs you to give you the waiver, right? They've not actually gotten that waiver confirmed that they're going to be able to play in a bowl next year. So I think it'd be okay to just like ride off into the sunset. You won your last game by 40 points over Coastal Carolina. Like, I'm good with them being done.
Same. I asked that because I was hoping we'd have the same answer to that, where it's just like in the moment, like as you're watching them win by 40, you're like, man, this is the last time I'm going to see Todd. You're like, yeah, I want to see him play one more game. But then after the game, like the next day out, and everyone's just like, we want to play in a bowl. I was like, I don't know if I want to play in a bowl. I'm fine with like that being it. And like, even for the players, they got up for that game where, like, I hate to say it, a bowl game might just be a disappointment.
It's also one where it's like, if they would be allowed to play in a bowl game, there's a little disappointment for me. Like, I'd rather they play in the Sun Belt East title game and no bowl game, which obviously there's no benefit for the Sun Belt to do that, right? Where JMU could be your champion, they're not even representing you in a bowl or something like that. Would be stupid on the Sun Belt's part. But I don't know. It was like an incredible season. It was awesome. I'm fine with it. That being the great finish, right? 8-3. I think we predicted there would be more in the 5 or 6 win range. So, I mean, they exceeded my expectations. They were really impressive. I'm excited for the future, but I'm also okay with them like just getting after the recruiting trail and loading up for future seasons.
Yeah, Cignetti mentioned that in that post-game kind of on-field press conference. I think that was when he mentioned it, that it's time to get after the transfers, and they've already landed one big-time transfer, Jordan McLeod, quarterback from Arizona, started his career at South Florida. He 2 years of eligibility, did not play this past year, got minimal reps with Arizona in 2021. I believe he had 40 pass attempts, and that's off of a pretty solid freshman and sophomore year at South Florida. That's been their big name. They got Phoenix Sproles, a North Dakota State wide receiver transfer. And I think those are their big name transfers they've landed already. But this transfer season, are you more keyed in on JMU losing talent in the likes of maybe Jalen Walker, Taurus Jones, some of that offensive line? Maybe, I mean, Chris Thornton's graduated. Maybe Reggie Brown. Highly doubt that. Probably more on the defensive side that they'd get poached. Are you more worried in that, or are you more looking forward to JMU bringing in more transfers?
Both, man. I'm looking forward to the whole offseason. It's kind of entertaining, even though it's like weird from a fan perspective, where you used to kind of like have the players and they'd be in your program for 4 years and you get to know them, and you'd look at the offseason, like the season ended, you'd be like, we get all these guys back. Very fun. And you just don't know right now. Like, I imagine a lot of the guys were good enough, or at least some of the guys, that they're going to get some P5 looks, because it's also kind of, there aren't really a lot of rules that are enforced. Like if someone I don't know, like Antoine Wells entered the transfer portal and it did not take very long for him to like be committed to South Carolina and have offers, right? So he's in the portal. I think
the second he was in the portal, he was posting graphics, blessed to receive an offer from University of Miami, blessed to receive an offer from, and you're like, huh.
I was like, wow, that's crazy that he knew it would get in there at 4:32 on a Tuesday. So, I mean, I think it's there's a lot that goes on with the portal. So I think there's some guys that Power 5 schools would probably be interested in. I don't know if they'll actually leave or not, right? I have no idea. So it's just going to be interesting to see how the roster shakes out, because they also just went 8-3 and did have at least some national attention. I don't know how much of a national statement it was, but like they're now a little bit more well-known nationally. I could see them having other players from G5s or even Power 5s who weren't getting a lot of time, who are like, hey, I want to go play for Cignetti and the Duke. So it'll be interesting to see how they manage the roster. I'm very, very interested to see how it plays out.
Do you think last season, because last season it felt like the transfer portal hit JMU harder than past seasons with losing Diamante Dorsey and Antoine Wells as the big names.
Yeah.
Do you think last season was kind of the outlier because they were making this move where those two players didn't necessarily know the certainty moving past that offseason into this season, and we won't see that type of kind of transfer stuff hit? Or do you think that was just a product of JMU being they were this year and Power 5 seeing the talent they have on their roster?
I think they'll probably lose people semi-regularly until they're like, I don't know, you got to build yourself up to a point where people are like, yeah, this is where I want to go and is the peak. I think it's easier to get to the NFL from JMU now than it was like a year or two ago because they're playing better competition. So that helps. The fact that they're able to get into the AP top 25, all that stuff. If they expand the playoff to 12, you got more access to the playoffs. So there's a lot of stuff there that I think they could help them in terms of getting players. There's always going to be like the high level Power 5s though that are getting people, right? I mean, you even look at like USC getting Caleb Williams from Oklahoma. Like it's crazy how different things can get with a coaching change or just anything that sort of changes. So I assume they'll still get some guys, but at the same time, and I'm interested in your take on this, you've got to think that them having this success puts them in a way better position than they were a year ago, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think if they went out and they only won 3 or 4 this season, and like there were amazing, like say Jalen Walker and Torres Jones, because those are the two names that I think that are going to get poached. If like I think they're the most likely, one or two of them. But say they had the same season they just are coming off of right now, but it was a 3-4 win team. I think they're very likely to go. And I think at this point, they're probably thinking twice. They just experienced what they experienced. They like the coaching staff. As long as there's no extreme coaching change, as long as the linebackers coach doesn't get poached to go be the defensive coordinator somewhere else, like as long as that type of continuity is still there, I think there's a much stronger chance that they leave, even if a Texas comes calling.
Yeah, I think so too. It's they're obviously JMU's in a better spot, and then some of those schools still have a little bit of a decent bargaining chip, right? I could still see if you get a big time Power 5 that's interested, it's hard to say no. Like Antoine Wells, like definitely boosted his draft stock. Like he's being viewed as an NFL
Tennessee,
receiver.
He catches for triple digits, and he's like the player of the week for South Carolina. Right. You're not doing that against Georgia Southern.
Right. So he obviously boosted his stock and is more well known nationally now. So there are benefits to it, but at the same time, they're in a good spot to go get some guys. And I just hope they retain a lot, because they're really good. Like, they're really good. You mentioned Jalen Walker and Torres Jones at linebacker, James Carpenter at defensive line. I don't think he's necessarily like the Power 5 mold, right, where he's like a former walk-on who just plays out of his mind sometimes, but really productive.
He really does.
His motor is crazy, where I think sometimes when you're a Power 5 like coach and you go in the portal, you look at like Jalen Walker and Torres Jones, like the ball skills and the speed, and you're like, oh my God. And then I don't know if James Carpenter has the same level of looks, which is like good if we were a JMU fan, because that dude is a freak. Maybe he does.
If you're a Power 5 coach, it's like Dan Campbell, and you're like, he has the grit.
Then it's going to
that might be a Matt Rule type of see James Carpenter jump off the film. We need him for our program.
Yeah, I could see that. Nebraska comes calling.
What was I gonna say? Crap, I got so into my own joke about Dan Campbell at your own expense that I forgot my point.
That we're unbeatable because we're so loaded.
Oh, this is my question. Who do you want them to target in the portal? And I know that's a question we got from Twitter. Who should we go after? And you also brought this up, and I wanted to touch on this. I think that defense next year is otherworldly good. They were already amazing with that front seven, but then now all of those young guys, Austin, Logan, the corners that were questionable all season, I think then they have a full offseason of growth. That secondary and that defense as a unit will be really, 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 really good next year if they take the step we expect them to. Yeah. With that being said, transfer portal, you already got quarterback. What's the position you want to see come through on Twitter? Breaking news, JMU adds blank from the transfer portal.
It's a great question. Shout out Daniel TFXC for his question about which position's the best to target in the portal. I go back and forth because I was thinking originally like secondary, and then I looked at it a little closer, and you mentioned Brent Austin, Chauncey Logan, even Devin Coles came on really strong at the end of the year, right? Josh Surratt, Francis Meehan, Q Reed, they're all like capable of coming back in terms of eligibility if they want to. So they do have some guys. I think secondaries may be a spot. Wide receiver, I know they added Phoenix Sproles, but they do lose a ton of wide receivers. So I guess my answer would be wide receiver, and I think you have maybe an offensive answer too. You're still quarterback in the quarterback camp?
Yeah. Mainly because and I know we're not getting like if it's McLeod, I'm happy with McLeod, but I'm seeing all these quarterbacks at the transfer portal, and I'm like, ooh, shiny. I want that quarterback. Like you see Sims hit the portal, and you're like, ooh, look at those numbers. And like he's probably not going to a G5. He's probably looking for like team at Georgia Tech. But then you see like Hudson Card, and you're like, that could be fun. Or you see like Alex Padilla from Iowa, who showed no signs of life throughout the season in the worst offense in the nation. Mm-hmm. What if he got with Cignetti? I mean, he was a 3.5 star at one point. That could be fun. And you're looking at there's another QB.
McNamara.
Yeah, I was like looking at it, and I'm like, this could be fun. Put him in the system. Maybe not Cade McNamara, but like. I just see every quarterback hit the portal, and this just could be me being greedy, and McLeod could very well be the answer because we didn't really know who Todd Centeio was. I was listening back to some of our earlier podcasts from the offseason, and one of your takes was, well, I mean, if you get him, who's Colorado State's coach?
Steve Adazio was the coach.
You said in one of the podcasts, well, if you get him away from Steve Adazio, anyone will get better. So you got to imagine.
I was right.
But it's just like, so we really, there's so many question marks on Centeio that easily fit that bill and be fantastic next year. The only thing that worries me about McLeod is he essentially hasn't played football in 2 years. That's the only thing. But he still has 2 years of eligibility left, and he could be a huge addition. But I just get a little greedy sometimes. If I'm answering it honestly, it's wide receiver and offensive line depth.
Yeah. I think that's fair. All fair points. I think the McLeod one, the comments are interesting because he's thrown 72 passes since 2021. So 72 passes over the last 2 seasons. Didn't play this year. I think that might have been some injury stuff, but
he also left the team.
He entered the portal pretty quickly. Yeah.
It was I was scrolling for highlights for him for our Instagram. Shout out our Instagram at JMU Sports News. But I was scrolling through Twitter to find highlights, and there was a lot of press conferences from the coach, and it was like, McLeod has left the team, and it was like September.
Yeah, that's true.
And like the one before that was like he had a shoulder injury that he was rehabbing, and like the next press I could have gotten my timeline wrong, and if I did,
I think that sounds right. That sounds right.
But...
where he was quick in. I think he might have actually been injured in 2021. Maybe that's what it was.
Okay,
but because he only played 3 games that year, and I think he was getting a good bit of run when he was in. But he played well at South Florida, so I think he's interesting. He didn't have a ton of rushing yards, but he is somewhat mobile. He moves pretty well. If you watch his clips, he moves well.
Yeah, but I think he averages 2 yards per carry in his career.
I think a lot of those are sacks.
Sure.
My guess. He can move around. There are some early South Florida highlights where he moved pretty good.
But I mean, Centeio averages like 4 yards a carry, 5 yards a carry, and he gets sacked.
Okay, well, Centeio was in a better system this year. What did he average?
4.2 yards. Centeio averaged 4.2 yards per carry this season.
Yeah. Well, you heard Curt Cignetti. We didn't even talk about this yet.
Oh my God. Oh my. Go ahead.
He was like, nobody thought Ben DiNucci could play player of the year, conference player of the year. Nobody thought, was it Cole Johnson? He's like, nobody thought Cole Johnson could play player of the year. Dottie comes here, player of the year. So he's made every quarterback he's ever had. Oh, we're not talking about when Cole Johnson didn't win player of the year, Jack. Is that what you want to do?
No, I was going to bring up the fact that no one had faith that Cole Johnson could be the starting quarterback and player of the year. Neither did you, Kurt. You benched him for Gage Maloney. The only reason Cole got his starting job back is because of COVID.
What a crazy story that was.
Also, what about Vad Lee? What about Justin Riscotti? What about all these guys that helped build the foundation before Ben DiNucci got here?
Yeah, they did. You deserve. Are you going to apologize in this podcast?
No, I refuse to apologize because it's very clear what my tweet was saying. I'm still upset about that.
Yes, you had a tweet about the recent quarterback generation, for those who don't know what we're talking about. And there's some people who ruffled some feathers. But you meant the modern quarterback era in terms of VAD building a foundation and being built upon, which is very true. They've had an incredible line here of quarterbacks.
Name me who was a quarterback from the years 2009 to 2013.
Was Dudzik still overlapping during that time?
I don't know because no one knows. I think that was Birdsong's year. Like if you have that long of a,
somebody knows,
the foundation is rebuilt when okay, whatever.
Yeah, Dudzik was the guy, and when they beat Tech, and it was raining for this game, but guess Dudzik's passing stats.
14 of 30 for 150 yards.
He was 5 of 8 for 121 and a touchdown.
Okay, get out of here that he would.
They also didn't make the playoffs that year.
Yeah, exactly. That tweet really ruffled me up.
And they go 8-5 the next year.
I mean, there was some dark days.
There were. I mean, they've had some teams that weren't. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But it's just like
it does. I'm over
the recent quarterback train, though. But more to that point has been incredible, right? Where they've gone just like great quarterback replaced by great quarterback replaced by a great quarterback. I don't know how sustainable that is. Like most programs can't do that. So when they bring a guy in the portal, and I'm automatically like, yeah, it's gonna be awesome because
that's a Sunbelt Player of the Year.
Yeah, quarterback whisperer. At some point, they're probably not going to have the conference player of the year at quarterback. So they need a certain level of play from quarterback, but that's also a spot where, like, if they can really bolster other positions, including the defense, they could take a little bit of pressure off McLeod or whoever else is the starter. Because I don't know how much you can really bank on these guys being just elite level performers every season. But maybe you can. Maybe Scotty's a genius.
I also think this offense, like, while we've seen it be run by elite level quarterbacks, I think you can also put in a quarterback who just makes the right read.
That's true.
And it would be successful as long as they're not turning it over and just missing targets. A lot of times the people Todd Centeio, and this isn't to take anything away from Centeio, a lot of the times the guy he's throwing to is wide open. So if like you can just hit your targets, I think you're fine. If you get a game manager in for the Dukes, I think Kurt Cignetti, Tino Sinceri, and Mike Shanahan could really get a good offensive game plan going.
I think that's fair. And this kind of ties in. I'm a little worried. I don't know about you. I'm a little worried about what the coaching staff could look like.
So let's break it down real quick. Luke Fickell left Cincinnati to go to your team.
Wi-Fi struggles in Charlotte tonight.
Am I back? There we go.
He's back. There he is.
So let me start that again. Let's recap what's happened so far here after a week.
Luke Fickell again for me.
Luke, are you hype about him going to Wisconsin?
Very hype about it.
Okay. Matt Rule went to Nebraska. That doesn't impact anyone because he was unemployed.
Yeah.
Hugh Freeze left Liberty to go back to the SEC, and he went to Auburn. Georgia Tech fired their coach, but I believe they just promoted someone to be...
They promoted... So there was this rumor, not even a rumor, it was really reported that they were going to get the Tulane head coach. They ended up promoting their interim head coach. So I don't know what fell through there, but their interim head coach, Brent Key, is now the head coach at Georgia Tech.
But I was trying to think of other...
Tulsa, yeah, UAB, because their head coach retired before the year, and I think they've done it all with an interim guy. But their player...
promote your interim because the players it's kind of stupid to not just promote your interim.
They had a pretty good year. I mean, they lost some close games. I think they were like 6-6, but they could have been a lot better than that. So
now with the coaching carousel and everything, Cignetti's name hasn't been officially linked.
Oh, it's been floated.
But footballscoops.com, we all know them as a very reputable source.
Do they have an S?
Football Scoops?
Is it Scoops or Scoop?
Scoop, footballscoop.com.
I like Scoops more. Scoops sounds better. Let's call them Football Scoops.
Okay, Football Scoops is out here talking about stuff. And they linked to Cignetti, a potential candidate for the Cincinnati job.
Oh, yes, they did.
Sorry, there's a lot that someone's like trying to break into my apartment. Kind of threw me for a loop. We'll make it through. This is a weird podcast. Things are coming off the rails fast, folks.
Yeah, they are. Just wait till we get to the Valpo game.
Quickly with the coaching carousel. Do you think there's much shakeup to the coaching staff if Cignetti doesn't leave? Like,
I don't know, man. I'm terrified. I love Kurt Signetti. I like going on. I like talking about his crazy post games. I like being like he's too conservative, but you know that he's still going to win you a lot of games. Like if they get bowl eligible next year, we're going to complain about him at least 3 weeks. He's easily taking them to a bowl game, and they're contending for a division title. And I can still complain and be like, oh man, I wish he would do this. And he's going to tweet crazy stuff. He's going to say crazy stuff in his post games, statement of the nation. He said that his cocktail that he was going to have, it was a diet tonic and vodka. A diet tonic. This should be like a whole
psycho.
feature.
That's
what
psycho.
is that?
That's psycho. Not even like a
diet tonic.
Someone really needed to follow up what brand of vodka, because that's very important. Is this man out here like Smirnoff base, or like does he at least use some of his $600,000 salary for like Grey Goose?
I hope so, especially with diet tonic
or Belvedere or something. But like diet tonic. Signetti,
what
what weight are you watching? You're not what is a diet tonic and vodka? Not even with a lime or anything. Just like that sounds so disgusting.
I like to think he puts a lime in, but man, if he
we need him on the podcast and just talk
about that.
Yeah, just talk recipe cocktail ideas, because we could open up a whole new world for Signetti, because a diet tonic and vodka might be the most disgusting cocktail I've ever heard.
It was tough because, I mean, he's feeling confident, as he should. They had an incredible season. JMU Nation loves the guy. They just won by 40 points, a statement to the nation. And then they're like, Coach, how are you going to celebrate? And he's like, a diet tonic and vodka. Huh?
Maybe two. In my
a second
lazy
one of
boy.
those. Sweet mother of God.
Why even a first?
Yeah.
Why did okay, here's the real important question before we actually get back to the coaching carousel. When that question was asked, in your head, what did he answer? Like in your head before he answered, you're like, this man is going to be this type of.
I thought it'd be something with like bourbon.
Same. I was like, this guy's an old fashioned dude.
That's what I was kind of thinking. It'd be like an old fashioned or something in that
like a
realm.
Bourbon neat.
Yeah, and then I thought he'd just be like sipping bourbon, and then he was talking about diet tonic. It was like, what? Are you okay?
Who hurt you?
Yeah, what's going on? But I want him to stay as our coach so that we can get him on the pod and talk to him about new cocktail ideas. And the concern I have is that I've heard some JMU fans that like he's floated for Liberty, UAB, Cincy, right? So all these little floatings, and not really like a connection, just like a hey, he could be a name to maybe monitor because he's a good coach, which makes sense. I think the part that's tough for me is some JMU fans I've seen, they're like, he's building something at JMU. I don't think he would want to bail on that. I kind of agree for like Liberty. Like even if Liberty throws a lot of money at him, I don't know that he would be like, yeah, I want to go to Conference USA. Like I could see him being like, you know what, that doesn't make me that excited for the challenge, even though the money would be cool. So I think for that one, I'm a little less worried. Even UAB is one that it depends, I guess, on a little bit on salary, but I feel like
they're American.
Yeah, but American's getting a little weaker with what JMU's building. I could see him hanging around for a little bit. Who knows?
Cincinnati worries you, though. Cincinnati worries you.
That's the thing that, like, first of all, Liberty and UAB, like, have some things that I like Liberty stuff aside, like, the money would probably be tempting for most college football coaches.
Yeah.
And then UAB's got some things that are interesting, including money. Cincinnati's very interesting. They're going to be a Power 5 school next year. Like, if they give him an offer, people are, he's building something. I don't think he cares. Like, I don't know that he should. Like, would you want to build something, or do you want to go spend like however many years you want to at Cincinnati? He also said in the post game he wants to coach for 10 to 15 more years. So he thinks he has a decade left.
I think that was him trying to get a contract extension out of JMU.
I think so too, and I think they will give him one and should. And part of the should is the same, like the reason Mike Houston got a 10-year deal is like, up that buyout, please, because he's really good. So like if he leaves, you better get whatever you can from the new school that grabs him. I think my concern though is just like the offers are getting better. Like before he would tweet and be like, no, I don't want to go to Buffalo. Like, why would he want to go to Buffalo? Now it's like, a Big 12 school. There's some rumblings that West Virginia isn't very happy with Neil Brown. He would absolutely leave for that job. So it's I don't know. It's the jobs are getting better is my concern, I guess.
Yeah, I think West Virginia he leaves for. Cincinnati I think he leaves for. But I also think that was why they hired him. So like in the past, and I know being FCS things are just very different, but Houston would have left for UAB. Houston would have left for Liberty. would have left for these lesser schools. I mean, heck, he left for ECU, which was in the American. Like, JMU was kind of high, and Everett Withers was 1 foot out the door the second he got into Harrisonburg. Nothing wrong with that, but he just was. So, like, I think they were hiring coaches who saw JMU as a stepping stone.
Yeah.
Where I don't think Signetti saw JMU as a stepping stone. I think he saw it as his final place, with the assumption that West Virginia would never open up to a person like him. But now the cards have aligned perfectly where you've gone to the FBS. You've proven that you can be a viable at the FBS level. You've proven that you can build something. Like, now all of a sudden is West Virginia getting rid of Neil Brown, which I think is a very strong possibility because they are very much not happy with him. Even Cincinnati, yeah, I think he leaves for those if kind of twofold. The money right, and he gets the offer, so it's not really twofold. It's more onefold. I think if the money's right, which it would be because he's only making $600,000 a year only, but he's only making $600,000 a year. One of the least paid coaches probably in the nation.
Yeah, and I saw something that I missed earlier, I guess, but from the Richmond Times-Dispatch where it was like over 4 years they had to increase his salary by whatever it was. So they're increasing it slowly still over the next couple. They could even get bigger boost than that. I know he has some bonuses. But yeah, like some schools can offer salaries that JMU can't. And for someone that like has a lot of ties to West Virginia and some other schools in that area, it would be hard to just like say no. I mean, they're like legit family ties with his dad coaching at West Virginia. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm not saying like West Virginia's offered him the job, but it's one where he's building something, which is very true. But at the same time, it would be almost strange. Houston. Yeah, it's like a lot of coaches have built things, and
the point of a coach is to build something. Like, you want to go to a program and show that you're capable of building. Do you then get the next job?
Right. It's just there's such little job security where if Signetti goes 4-8 2 years in a row, JMU fans are going to be like, this can't happen. This is an unacceptable standard. This is standard. We got to be in college football playoffs.
There was a Twitter space less than a year ago titled Fire Signetti, where at least 15 JMU fans calling for his job. They are the same people now here in November of 2022 sitting back and saying that we have to pay him more so we don't lose him to Cincinnati. There is no job security. There is no loyalty to a head coach with all of that. And Signetti, if you can get a big payday to Cincinnati, take it.
Well, it's the same with anyone, right? If Saban goes 3-9 3 years in a row, people are going to be like, okay, thank you, but get out.
Yeah.
Right at Alabama. So everyone just wants to win. So if you're a coach, you kind of just got to do whatever is best for you and your family. So it's one where I am very excited about Signetti being JMU's head coach. I also don't think it's crazy, given the fact that he would like to coach for another decade, that he's maybe isn't here that much longer. And I hope he is, and I hope I'm wrong. But I think there's a good chance, given his success, given the fact that JMU can clearly reach a national stage, like if they become one of the best teams, or they kind of already are one of the best teams in the group of five. And if they keep building toward that and further up that pole, it's going to be hard for other, programs to not throw a bunch of money at him. Like, you look at Kansas State's a top 10 team with Chris Kleiman or whatever, right from North Dakota State, who is the former coach there. And he's done incredible things there. Like, you can get these former FCS head coaches that turn out to be home run hires. I wouldn't be shocked if Big 12 or ACC schools are like, wait a second, this guy's a real deal, crazy experienced. There's a lot of things to like.
And you're also seeing that trend more, and I saw it a lot over this college football season with like Lance Leopold and Chris Kleiman, where it's like, if they win at every level, hire them. Like, if they're a D2 coach and they win and they go FCS and they win and they go low tier G5 FBS and they win, there's a strong likelihood they're going to win with your program. And that's Signetti. He's won at every level. He won at Elon. What did they do before Signetti? Nothing. What have they done after Signetti? Nothing.
Right. They had a good year this year. Don't sleep on them.
They lost first round of the FCS playoffs. Cool.
That's good for them.
You're right. You're not wrong.
No, but I mean, I hear what you're saying. Like, he clearly took them to like a spot they had never really been before. And they kind of had some of their season derailed by injuries where they like maybe could have been a bigger factor. He's had so much success at so many different spots. He's really good. But I mean, you look at like his dad was the head coach at West Virginia for a few years, and he was an assistant at West Virginia. And then he went to
Wasn't he
IU.
the quarterback of West Virginia too?
Saying that he was, yeah. Kurt, not Frank. So
Yeah,
it's
Kurt.
like there's so many ties. I'm not, again, they haven't offered, but like there are things like that it just, like he left Alabama to go be the head coach at IUP, which definitely had like, because his dad had done that, reasons, right? I don't think most Alabama assistants aren't like IUP. Yes. Like, let's see what I could do there. So I do think there are things that matter to him outside of JMU, obviously. And my overarching point is just that he's a really good coach. And it seems hard to think that he's going to be in Harrisonburg for like the long term, just because he's such a good coach.
Yeah. And as we've talked this out more, I'm realizing that I can coach for 10 to 15 more years. May not have been trying to get JMU to give him a contract extension, but he knew the coaching carousel was starting to move. And I think
it's probably both.
I think it was kind of a call out also to like other teams that, hey, I might be in my 60s, but I have time left. Speaking of coaches who use the JMU program as stepping stones, men's basketball.
You don't think Byington's here for the long term?
No, I don't. Men's basketball. They went to the Savannah Regional that wasn't actually called the Savannah Regional. I forget what it was called. The Hostillo Community Classic.
Sure.
They took down Coastal Georgia, noted NAI tough foe, 100-54. Then they beat the best team on their schedule, not named UVA, by 19 points on a neutral floor and looked damn good doing it. Then it was a tough 81-79 loss in overtime that Bennett is now painting as this entire season is lost and this entire season is a joke and we should just stop playing basketball at this point. Valpo is in the 200s of the KenPom. It is a bad loss, but I'm here to tell you, man, bump the brakes. The sky's not falling. It's okay.
I think it's falling. Here's the thing. I like this team a lot. They're very good. They're going to have a good season. Blah, 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 blah. They're probably the best team. Probably the best
my
team
optimism. Here comes why I think we suck.
Probably the best team in the Sun Belt. Yada, yada, yada. Right? A lot of talking from people. I'm just so
probably
tired.
Will make the NCAA tournament, but I mean,
I'm just so tired of waiting for them to be relevant. And I haven't even been waiting that long. Other people.
There's 70 KenPom. What do you mean?
Other people have been waiting for decades. Jack. And I've only been waiting since 2014, and they haven't done anything of relevance, anything of note, and I just want them to get there. And that's all. I'm just impatient.
They beat UVA last year.
No, okay, that was their one. Yeah, that was pretty cool. But that's one achievement. I want them to make postseasons. And like, you can't do that. Oh, I know what you're going to say. Oh, you can't do that in November. Sure. You can't do it in November. Here's my thing, though. It's frustrating given the incredible success across the athletic department. Softball is making Women's College World Series. Lacrosse has a recent national title. Volleyball, top 25 RPI. They're going in. They're going to beat the living crap out of BYU, respectfully. You've got football, got into the AP top 25. Women's basketball has had some post, at least like WNIT successes, and they've had a couple teams that kind of got screwed under O'Regan. So there's just all this like department-wide success. And look, Byington's awesome. I love him. I was just frustrated after the loss because it was like, this is such a cool opportunity to beat a terrible team and win this nonsensical little tournament and say that you won this little MTE or whatever, and you got it, and you're excited, and you're happy, and you only have one loss in North Carolina and all these things. And they lose to Valpo, and it's just like stabbing me in the back, you know?
Bennett, this wasn't an at-large team.
No, they're not an at-large team.
This team had no... So this loss means nothing. There was nothing this team could do this season in a rational mind to make national attention.
beat North Carolina or Virginia.
In a rational mind.
A lot of people are saying that they would have beaten North Carolina.
No, by a lot of people, you mean Shane Metlin.
That's all I was told, is that they should have beaten North Carolina on an average day.
Look, does this schedule suck? Yes.
It's the worst schedule in the world.
But they've moved from 127 in KenPom all the way up to 73. They're
79 now after their disheartening loss.
You're right, but this is a mid-major basketball team that is going to suffer some losses. Like, some really head-scratching losses. Like, you scroll ahead, they'll probably lose to App State at App State, or like Georgia Southern at Georgia Southern, something weird like that, where it's a team that, for all intents and purposes, they should destroy, but they're going to struggle with. It's a cold shooting night. This was a terrible game by JMU. They shot abysmally. Let me pull up the box score so I know for a fact exactly what they shot. They shot 40% on the game. They shot 20% in overtime. They shot 33% from deep. Not a winning recipe. They turned it over a few times, 12 times to be exact, and they only had, they had 3 guys in double figures. But they're like their best shooters when it combined 1 of 6, 3 of 10 from deep. Not good. And then when you look at Valpo, what happened? Their 2 best players went off and absolutely had huge games. Like, Valpo needed otherworldly play to beat a down JMU team. Like, to me, the sky isn't falling. To me, this team is where they are. I think you had way too high expectations coming into this season. They're going to win the Sun Belt, but the Sun Belt's trash.
Well, I don't even think that's my thing that bothers me. They're not guaranteed to win the Sun Belt. I'm mostly sad that men's basketball got the short end of the conference realignment stick. It makes sense that they moved to the Sun Belt, but you could argue it's like last year's CAA with JMU in it is probably just as good as this year's Sun Belt. The CAA has got maybe better. Okay.
Because Towson was a top 70, was a top 80 KenPom team. And if you put this JMU team into that CAA, you have 2 top 80 KenPom teams. Sunbelt.
You're right. Actually, you're right. Sorry. The new additions are absolutely horrendous. North Carolina and
I should say really throw out the new people, and then like if you just took
But like Towson is they're a top 100 team in KenPom right now, and like Charleston's receiving votes in the top 25. So I think maybe that's why I'm a little more sad, right? Is like these teams are pretty good. Charleston's rolling over people. They look unbelievable. I'm sure they'll lose to Old Dominion today, which will change my opinion on all of that. But it's just, I don't know. I'm just frustrated, man. I want them to be relevant. They are going to be relevant this year. They're playing really well. They're awesome. They're fun to watch. I was just disappointed in that one because it was like, what an opportunity to keep the momentum rolling against a bad team and didn't take advantage. So it made me frustrated, but yeah, they're an awesome team.
You're 100% right, but you're also going to hate this excuse. I'm going to say game 3 in 3 days. Valpo didn't play that many games in that many days. Valpo had the advantage with rest.
Saturday off.
When we talked with our friend Dom about this, he made a really good point that when you're in conference tournament time, when you're playing the championship game, everyone has the same amount of rest, so there is no rest inequality. When you get into the thick of conference play, there's no rest inequality. It's all very the same. And that's just that's what it comes down to. Plus, we're talking about Noah Friedel and his kind of streakiness to start the season, and even with Morse too. Morse, that's kind of his MO. He's either going to shoot the lights out or he's going to shoot 20%. You got to live and die with that. The hope was that Noah Friedel was going to come in and be a knockdown 40% three-point shooter. I think he still will be in conference play. Got to keep in mind that he hasn't played college basketball for a full year. So he's going to be a little streaky to start this season.
That all makes sense. Look, I'm excited about the start. If you told me they'd be 6-2 with a bunch of blowout wins, I'd be pretty excited. And I am pretty excited. I'm mostly upset that they have to play these garbage teams. So when they lose, it just feels frustrating because it's like, gosh, you should take care of business every night, but that's obviously not going to happen. So I hear you. I'm excited for the season, the rest of the season. I think it'll be fun to keep an eye on them, and hopefully they can peak at the end of the year. But God, I also hope they can get some non-conference schedules in the future that don't just suck.
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of hope that you got to become a quad 1 or a quad 2 type of
That's
team.
what you got to be Valpo. You got to get yourself in the quad 1 so you don't have to play Valpo
I see
again.
that point. I see that point. But if they finish the season, what?
You're right.
25-6 or whatever, it adds up to be
Sun
like.
Belt, yeah.
And also, I got to say, I know these numbers are inflated because of playing Coastal Georgia, Valley Forge, and they're going to be playing Gallaudet. They're 10th in 3-point percentage.
Mm-hmm.
They're 23rd in effective field goal percentage. They're 18th in block percentage. And they have a pretty solid defense. And when you look at them compared to the rest of the Sun Belt, they are truly head and shoulders everyone else. And the next closest team is Marshall, who relies on 2 players, Tavion Kinsley and Andy Murray, and they run at a breakneck speed. So 1, that's going to be a fun game.
Yeah.
But 2, like, Marshall's not great. Like, they're fun, but they play atrocious defense, and they just win by outscoring you at, like, an ungodly number. So, I mean, there's weaknesses across the league. And the weakness for JMU is not being consistent, which sucks.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. They've got a couple teams that could give them a little bit of a run. Troy's had some decent results, but no one's JMU's got a really good team. So that's exciting.
ODU maybe.
But they're definitely at the top of the league, which is good. It's good. It's just sad to see, some of these matchups are tough, and I've got high expectations. I want them to take sort of this massive exponential leap, and it's probably going to be some incremental baby steps. But it's some of it's frustrating to me because of when I got to the college. Matt Brady was the head coach. They had this baseline level of performance. They fired him because the baseline that they were at was not good enough. And then it took, what is it? I don't know. It's like 5 years later, they're back to that baseline. That's what had me frustrated. But Byington's awesome, and they're close to hitting their stride. So that's good. Looking forward to the non-conference slate finally ending.
I'll say 2 more things, or 1 more thing before we get up and move on past men's basketball. According to KenPom, as of right now, as of recording, they are favored to win every single conference game except for 1 this season.
Yeah, they're going to be favored in a lot of games. And even with that like projected record with all the percentages, right, based on the favored 23-8, 13-5. I mean, that'd be pretty good, right? I'm not really going to be mad about that if they go into March and have a chance to win their conference tournament. So if that happens, I'll be a happy camper. I was just frustrated after this game listening to it on the radio. It felt like they had so many chances that they let slip, but hey, they'll bounce back. They'll bounce back. And also, this is a good thing because now we as a fan base can stop thinking we were supposed to beat North Carolina.
We as a fan base can get that idea that we are an at-large team out of our head.
Oh, it's gone now. Thank God.
Yeah, thank God. It's going to be back if we beat UVA. Yeah, if we beat UVA, that at-large just become, whoa! And then you kind of hope that like maybe Marshall can move up so that could be a quad 2 win.
You
win
out
all of a sudden.
Valpo wins out. They figure some things out.
Big time win over on the women's side. They took down Liberty 67-63.
Yeah.
They had a pretty good showing against number 13 UNC too. They did lose that one 76-65, and next up will be a Thursday game at VCU in Richmond.
Yeah, I'm gaining positivity with them. Their schedule is not too bad the rest of the way. So we'll see what happens when they get the Texas transfer. Kobe King away in there. I think that'll change some things for sure. She's a superstar. But Kiki Jefferson, I watched the Liberty game Wednesday before Thanksgiving. 20 points, 16 were on free throws. I was wildly impressed with her ability to get fouled. Was not shooting well, but had 16 free throws and 12 rebounds. She's just like, she's so good, man. She's
going to have to step up throw game a little bit to get into the 50-40-90 club. Currently shooting 56% from the floor, 50% from deep, 81% from the free throw line.
16 of 17 though in that Liberty game, so she's plugging right along.
Love to hear it. Peyton McDaniel's also been massive addition.
She's good.
Averaging 18 points per game, shooting 42% from the field, 46% from deep. Big time addition. Gonna need to see a third though step up. Not saying they need to have like another double-digit scorer, but they have to have a someone step up and kind of be a player that they can rely on in big moments. We thought that was going to be Claire Neff. Hasn't really.
She was great against Liberty.
And also, I completely messed up. Peyton McDaniel's not averaging 18.2 points per game. She's averaging 9.5.
Feels like 18.2 and she's out there.
I read minutes instead of points. That's all.
It's probably, yeah. So it's what she's probably per 40. She's probably averaging like 20.
Thank you for covering for me.
Well, once they get her minutes up, though, seriously, because she played 23 minutes and had 11 points and 9 rebounds. So, like, she's exceptionally good when she's able to be out there. I'm fascinated to see what they do when they get Kobe King-Hawea and then Caroline Drummond when she comes back from injury at point guard. I want to see, because this is maybe my biggest gripe with Coach O, who I think is still pretty good, if he's listening.
He might be.
He might be. I kind of want to see him get a little more forceful with like shot distribution, where like in this game, like Jamia Hazel took 16 shots and she was 4 of 16. She can get open a lot, but she's certainly missed some shots. Really good offensive weapon. I also don't think it's crazy if Coach O was like, I don't want a game where Kiki doesn't take the most shots. I realize she got 17 free throws, so it kind of skews her like shots in this game. But at the same time, it's hard, and they've had it happen before where they have like their elite player who's pretty efficient, like Kamai Smalls or someone else, and they don't lead the team consistently in shots taken. And that's something for me that, like, I don't know. I think he could be more forceful there where it's like, look, we're running the offense through them. I want them taking the most looks, because I don't think anyone would complain if Kiki Jefferson goes out and is like, I'm putting up 20 shots today. Like, I think that would probably be good for him.
Yeah, and Jemiah is not shooting it exceptionally well. She's second on the team in minutes per game with 24.5, but is shooting just 40% from the field and 12% from deep. So you want to see more out of your point guard, especially when you have a player like Kiki. Like if you're and this might sound rude, but like if you're taking shots away from her, you better be hitting at a high clip. Like Peyton McDaniel's hitting 42%, 46 from deep. When Peyton McDaniel takes a shot away, I'm okay with that. As of right now, it feels like Hazel, and I don't mean to be like just completely going in on her, but it just feels like almost a liability. 11 turnovers, 8 assists, isn't shooting it well from the floor. Like,
And I think with her too, it's like find ways to get her.
I feel like I'm really. She's shooting it fine from the floor. She's shooting it poorly from deep, but she's being fine from the floor. But the negative turnover to assist ratio is bad. Sorry, go ahead. I need to get that off my chest.
Hazel's just so athletic that it's like get her attacking the rim or get it to a point where she can attack and kick out. Because I feel like if they do that a little more, it might be more effective. Because I don't think her jump shot's necessarily her strength. But there's also times where like she'll cross someone over and take a jump shot where it's like nobody else in the team can create that space. So it's
great.
It's like if they can use her somewhat differently, I think that would be interesting. If they can have her almost become at times like pass first, because I know Coach O has asked in the past, he's like, hey, kind of need you as the scorer. So I think that's the reason she's shooting a lot. But if they can get her in there where she almost becomes pass first at times, her athleticism makes her someone who's really dangerous in that kind of role. I don't know. I just like, it feels like the more shots for Jefferson and McDaniel, the better. Just seems like my really elementary analysis.
And I should say she is shooting 40% from the field. Like she's not shooting an abysmal number.
No.
It's just when you compare it to Kiki, who 56% from the floor, you're like, I'd like her to get more shots. Hazel's a fantastic 3, and if she can get kind of put into a more of a situation that uses her ability, plays to her strengths more, I think that could be really beneficial. Almost playing her like as a 2 when Jeremiah comes back.
Yeah, I'd like to see her attack a little more too. She's 10 of 12, 83% from the free throw line. Like if she's in the paint, getting fouled, getting free throws, pretty dangerous player. So I'm just interested to see how he sort of uses the lineup as the season goes on, because he's got a lot of weapons. Like Hazel could legitimately be like their 4th or 5th option at one point, and given her athleticism, that would be a pretty crazy team. So long way to go. I'm just interested to see how they use everyone going forward, because it would be really disappointing if they don't at least make like the WNIT, because Kiki's legitimately one of the better players in the country.
Yeah, for sure. I also completely forgot to change the lower third on that one. That's on me, folks. And last but certainly not least, volleyball's dancing. Big time stuff from the Dukes over there in Godwin Hall. They won the Sun Belt, and they're scheduled to play BYU, who is the 7th seeded team in their region, the Pittsburgh region. Do you like their chances to win? Have you been following along with BYU volleyball this year?
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of BYU tape, and they're a competitive group that plays hard and loves the game, from what I've seen.
Yeah, kind of almost like a first in, last out type of players, like almost like coaches on the court.
Probably accurate, actually. I haven't looked a lot, honestly, at anything. So now I'm scrolling through their schedule. They've got some losses. They're not an unbeatable team by any means, but they are pretty good. But you know who else is pretty good? JMU.
First time they're competing in the tournament since 2017.
Exciting.
The team has never made it past the first round.
They've already had like a historic season, right? With like getting to like number 21 in the RPI and stuff. So I feel like they're playing with house money at this point. Any win is a bonus, but they're good enough to hang in there. It's kind of hard to tell because I don't know exactly the strength of what their non-con schedule was. I know they had a 3-0 loss to Florida State, which is at least the biggest name on their schedule, but they've been really good all year. They played some good teams. Texas State just missed the tournament. They're a really good team, and they were able to beat them in, I think, 2 out of 3 matches, and the loss, I believe, was still pretty competitive. So I don't know. I think they'll have a chance. Friday, 4 o'clock. You can watch it on ESPN Plus. Be cool if they got one.
And I mean, volleyball is the team that benefited the most from the move to the Sun Belt because it's not like a CAA team got a seed or anything like that.
Man, that's one where CAA volleyball is actually darn good, and their men's basketball pre the additions was had some teams that were pretty. Like if it was JMU, Taos, and Charleston this year in men's basketball for CAA, like you could convince me they were close to a 2-bid league.
Yeah, I say that because Towson's an 8 seed. But if Colgate's able to upset Pittsburgh,
that'd be huge.
A JMU Colgate, and JMU's able to upset BYU. That could be a JMU Colgate matchup. And we all know how JMU feels about Colgate.
Right, they play Pitt. Yeah, so it's exciting though. Good to get in the NCAA tournament. Fall sports have had a ton of success.
I think Grant Johnson tweeted out the stat of the team's record in the Sun Belt, and it's just absolutely like mind-boggling how good the Sun Belt in the first year.
Yeah, pretty dominant from the Dukes. Very
yes,
exciting
sir.
time.
Anything else you want to add?
No.
All right. For Bennett Conlon, my name's Jack Fitzpatrick. You guys have a wonderful rest of your night, day, whenever you're listening. See ya.
Thank you for listening to Believe. You can show support to your host by subscribing to the show and giving us a 5-star rating on your preferred platform. Check us out at Believe.com and search for BLEAV on YouTube.